Uh, Hi ladies and gentlemen, Morinori Hundak here again. The topic that I'm going to be discussing in this video, my apologies if my voice is a bit scruffy and I sound a bit sleepish. It's because it is nighttime in my location. Specifically, it's well past midnight, so hence that. So again, if you notice that, if not, then fine, let's continue. Regardless, in any case, the topic that I'm going to be covering, the topic that I'm going to be covering in this video is, as the header itself states, why the occult scares mundane people, aka muggles. Okay, muggles is simply, for those that don't know what muggles are, muggles is a phrase that occultists use to refer to mundane folk, because occultists see themselves as a separate kind of bunch. Well, not see themselves, we are a separate kind of bunch, we're not like regular people. Yeah, so the word muggle is almost like it's almost like it's almost like a derogatory phrase. Okay, that's just a small elaboration or a brief elaboration on what muggle means for those people that don't know what muggle means. In any case, again, yeah, let's discuss it. Why does the occult scare, or why do mundane people fear the occult? The reason for this, there can be several reasons. Okay, mundane people don't just fear the occult. I mean, the majority of the mainstream public either fears the occult or they mock the occult. Mock as in they laugh at the occult. And I'm going to be simply elaborating on all of these, but specifically the first part. Okay, fear. Why do people fear the occult? The mundane people. Why do mundane people or muggles fear the occult? They fear the occult because of its power, and people are generally speaking that just the average person that has no knowledge, no real knowledge or know-how about the occult, fears the occult because the occult seems like something unknown, and it seems like something that is greater than themselves. Okay, people that are mundane tend to be narrow-minded when it comes, especially when it comes to the subject of spirituality. They don't occupy themselves or preoccupy themselves with anything that lies beyond mundanity. For them, the world consists of what they can see, hear, and feel. And the second they come across something that doesn't make sense, that doesn't fit the narrative, their narrative, and that doesn't fit into their small, minuscule box of that is their world, they immediately either dismiss it out of fear and they start to hate it, or otherwise. Another reason is that some mundane people have realistically seen, even if they haven't experienced it themselves, they've seen the occult or occult forces at work, and in most cases, agony and pain and misery that it has caused others. So, without saying, it's like seeing someone being hit not being hit by a truck. That's a bad example. It's like seeing your neighbor, for example, contracting some deadly contagious disease, some kind of virus that makes all of his teeth fall out and makes him develop blisters all over his body and then eventually die. I mean, you yourself would start walking with a mouth cap or a mouthpiece if you were that person's neighbor. That fear is a normal response in such a scenario. That's basically what it's like. Okay, mundane people, there are mundane people out there that have seen what the occult can do, the damage that it can deal. In most cases, it's not for the good. The experience, indirect experience that they've had, or the spectatorship that they have had, is negative. They've either directly had an experience, they have seen once in their life, they've seen a malevolent entity in most cases, or they've seen an entity with malevolent intentions, or they have either seen such an entity or some occult force deal damage to someone that, for example, was just like them, completely normal according to their so-called level of normalcy, and then that person's life was just wrecked, or that person was just traumatized beyond belief or repair, and immediately they're just scared unbelievably, you know, they're just petrified, terrified with fear. Um, and that is a plain and simple explanation for why they fear the occult. So again, it's either via indirect or direct experiences. And last but not least, it's also, that's the last thing I was going to mention. Last but not least, it's also because some of them know theoretically, even if they've never had experiences or seen it, they know theoretically and they freely admit that there are higher forces out there, you know, forces that are well above and beyond them. And they know in theory that these forces are capable of, that these forces rule over them, even if they don't really think about it. You know, it is lodged somewhere in the back of their minuscule minds, and regardless of how superficial and narrow-minded they can be in thought and in their overall level of intellectuality, their overall level of intellect, they just fear the occult, okay, for that same reason, and they want nothing to do with it. They prefer to lead their mundane lives, and they just prefer to keep going on and on and on, okay, just like that. For them, okay, they don't want, they just enjoy and mundanity. They want nothing from the occult and want nothing to do with it. The other thing that I was going to discuss too is why mainstream people mock the occult. A lot of people that mock the occult do it for the same reason that I mentioned at the beginning, out of fear. They mock the occult and laugh out of fear. They just laughably dismiss the occult out of fear as superstition, as in similar to what I'm going to do right now. Nah, that's just superstition. Yes, a ghost. Sure, you saw a ghost. You know, they just, again, it's like I just said, they know somewhere in the back of their minds that, you know, that paranormal forces exist, and they simply laughably dismiss it because they don't know how to, they're either too afraid to admit that there's something out there that's greater than them, point one. And point two, they just refuse, they live in denial, they refuse to admit to themselves that that is the case. So what they do is just laughably dismiss it, you know. A lot of people, again, especially old-fashioned people that are way too narrow-minded in their way of thinking and way too ignorant and idiotic, they will openly dismiss anything like superstition as in, get out of here, that's not possible, get out of here, that's not possible. And again, I'm pretty sure that you viewers have ever in your lives at least seen someone in fiction, like in a movie or something, just laughably dismiss something out of sheer fear, okay? Because they're simply afraid and they don't know how to deal with that fear. So, you know, some people just don't live in denial. A lot of people live in denial, not some people. They have difficulty coping with reality, and they have difficulty coping with the way things are, and just admitting to themselves primarily that they are not in control of their lives, and that something greater than them can harm them, and there's nothing they can do about it. And they just laughably live in their own little world of denial, which they can. That's their problem. I could care less. And yeah, that's one of the reasons for why people mock the occult. Another reason is because why especially skeptics mock the occult is because, unfortunately, again, this is a reference to other videos that I've made called Why Are Occultists Poor and The Occult World. These videos basically go deeper into how occultists are. And that pretty much answers the question that I just asked, you know, or the statement that I just made for why skeptics mock the occult. But again, I'm going to treat it here again, albeit shortly. Okay, skeptics mock the occult. A lot of skeptics mock the occult because I think in the history of mankind there hasn't been a single occultist, or since ages, there hasn't been a single occultist that has achieved success in his or her practice, and that is capable of explaining it in a clear and concise and normal way. You know, as in, hey, this is how it works, this is what you're supposed to do, that is it, you know, cause and effect. again, skeptics also always point out to the fact that the majority of people that are interested in the occult and or practice the occult are people that have little to nothing to show for their lives. Most of them are degenerative losers and circus freaks and parasites and everything else in between, people that belong to the lowest class of society, if you can even call them people. They're bottom feeding parasites, the majority of them. Again, it's like I said in the other videos, it's like someone that tries to pass himself off as being a master bookkeeper or a mathematician when that person can even solve the most basic of math problems. That person can even solve the mathematical equation of how much is 2 plus 2 or what the square root of 4 is. That's what it comes down to pretty much. And yeah, skeptics can keep pointing these things out, and they're right. I completely side with them when it comes to that, But again, I'm not gonna go too much into that. But that's what skeptics are saying. Again, you're more than welcome to look up the other videos, why occultists are poor and the occult world. Those are the headers, the titles of the 2 other videos that I shot. Again, that's why they mock the occult, okay? Again, they simply, that's the fundamental main reason that they use, and that's the basis that they use for simply proving that the occult does not exist and that magic overall is fake and that it doesn't exist. That spellcastery overall is just nothing but a bunch of hooey and all of that. Because they can't point out a single occultist that has gotten, for example, has become incredibly wealthy, or that has achieved anything worthwhile with his own occult skill. And it is true to a certain degree, like I just said. But again, I'm not going to get too much into that. They're wrong, of course, but I more than understand their viewpoint, okay? And the things that they submit as evidence, so to speak. So that's another example of why people mock the occult, or another reason for why people mock the occult. Mainstream public mocks the occult. And again, there's nothing else that I can mention, okay? Most people are just, I'll simply start closing this video off now by simply stating that the majority of people out there, people that are mainstream, right, are people that are so immersed in the material world that they are completely unaware of the fact that they're being ruled by higher forces. They don't know this, okay? A simple example that you can say, that I can make is that, again, we're also heavily influenced by the universe and directly by the planets. Simple example are the sun and the moon. We're also influenced by day and night, but the majority of people out there, okay, are completely unaware or oblivious to this. They just go through lives, going about their daily business, just scurrying around like insects. I'm not insulting the mainstream public here, but just in this context, then yeah, let's just call them, they scurry around like insects. Let's just make that statement, or let me just make that statement. They scurry around like insects, and they just have, again, they're completely oblivious and unaware of the fact that they're being ruled by higher forces. Okay, as an occultist, I know better, okay, but I'm not here, I'm definitely not here to convince anyone or to teach anyone that, okay. I might be willing to teach people that are really interested, but that's up for debate, and that's not on topic. I don't want to drift off topic. Lastly, I'd also like to point something out. The Goeric spirit Belial, the fallen angel Belial, I remember him once telling me when I work with him, Belial is one of the default spirits that I work with, and he told me once, it was last year when I worked with him, his literal words were, the majority of people, Morino, that live out there, they're like parasites, they're like insects. They just scurry around completely unaware and oblivious to the fact that we rule and preside over pretty much every aspect of their existences. we like you, by we he means spirits of course, we like you because you're different, okay? You're not like the average person, you're a rare kind of individual, and that's why we like you, and that's why we enjoy, one of the reasons, okay, many reasons that we enjoy working with you. That's pretty much what it came down to, what he said. um, Again, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here, okay? I'm not saying that people should worship me like I'm a god. I'm just saying literally, that's literally what Belial told me. Okay, this was last year, 2017. Let's just say mid 2000, either the beginning or mid 2017. Yeah, so that's simply an example that I'd like to give, okay? But yeah, those are the reasons. Let's just see if I missed anything. Nah, that's why people fear. Those are the reasons for why people fear and why they mock the occult, okay? The occult is simply falls outside their box of existence, okay? They're just like eat, sleep, breathe, defecate, die types. That's how they live. Bluntly put, I apologize in advance for the swearing, but just to drive the point home, people are like, you've heard that saying, people are like, eat, sleep, breathe, shit and die. Okay, I'm sorry that I said shit again, but again, I'm just saying it because I want to emphasize and drive the point home. Okay, that's what people are like. Okay, that's a statement that a lot of people make. Okay, that's what life consists of to people. A lot of people out there just live by impulse. They're honestly no different than animals. Okay, I think even some animals surpass them in terms of self-awareness. They just go through life, live by impulse, doing everything that just comes to them naturally without even questioning anything or having either a severely limited capacity for thinking or inability to think at all. So again, something like the occult is way above the pay grade or way above the thought grade of the average person. The average person is here on an existential and intellectual scale, and the occult and occult forces are way above here, way up here, and yeah, it's just something that they automatically don't know how to deal with. So they either fear what you don't understand, as the saying goes, or they just mock it for reasons that I mentioned. Okay, and again, like I just said, skeptics do have a valid point, or they do make valid points in all the things that I mentioned. That no occultist, I think either in the history of mankind, or no known occultist has ever done anything worthwhile, okay, or can prove and demonstrate effectively how things work, and that and has achieved anything, something truly noteworthy by practicing magic and by proving that, hey, this exists. Okay, obviously they're wrong, okay, but I understand their viewpoint and the statement that they're making. I understand the argument that they're bringing to the forefront. It is very troubling, of course, to someone that isn't familiar with the occult. It does seem like the occult or the occult community is filled with nothing more than troublemakers and thugs and hooligans, just fraudsters, deceptive people that claim to have paranormal powers but have none. It just goes on and on and on. Trying to find a legitimate occultist like myself, or trying to find a psychic or spellcaster, whatever, that is legitimate or legit and that can actually demonstrate things effectively and explain things in a clear and concise way, is literally like looking for a needle in a haystack. So they just generalize things by making the statement that, hey, all occultists, magic is just bullshit. Magic is just nonsense. Okay, it's called a generalization, and I understand them more than enough. I also generalize. In any case, that is it. Thanks for watching. Bye.